Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the sixth episode. We were on episode six yet. Sixth episode of Generations of the Game. Episode seven. I'm sorry. Episode seven of Generations of the Game with me, JP. Also, this evening, of course, got to send a shout out to my co-host right here, Will Lyons. Say what's up to the people, Will.
What's good, ladies and gentlemen? JP, and of course, the guy down bottom, my boy, Ben Fair.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Ben, how you feeling tonight, man?
I'm feeling good, man. I appreciate you guys inviting me back. I enjoyed it last time we recorded together, and I enjoyed just talking, the broad spectrum of sports with you guys. So I'm very happy for today's episode and some of the talking points we got.
Man, of course, we're always glad to have you, man. Definitely, man. You always bring some good insight here. So, man, a lot is going down in the 24-hour sports cycle. You had Bill Belichick leaving New England, Pete Carroll leaving Seattle, Nick Saban retiring, and we're not going to talk about it tonight. And then Stephen A. Smith is ethering Jason Whitlock. All this was down in the last 24 hours. But let's begin. We got to start with, of course, I would say, let's start with the national championship game first, and then we'll get into the coaching corral of what happened. Man, I tell you, that was a beatdown on Monday night, y'all. Michigan versus Washington. They beat them on the defensive line, the offensive line. Every which way you can think of, they beat Washington. Give me your thoughts on the game. Since Ben, you're the guest. Give us your thoughts on what you saw Monday night with Michigan and Washington.
Yeah, for the good majority of the game, it wasn't as much of a beatdown as the final score indicated.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 7-point game at halftime. Washington got the ball to start the second half. Unfortunately, Michael Penix threw that interception, one or two plays into the second half.
Right.
But that interception only went to 3 points for Michigan. So, the defense stood up, didn't allow a touchdown and short field. And, Washington, it seemed like they were figuring little things out on defense. They weren't allowing JJ to torch them in the air. They told them they went into it, I guess, and, their whole mindset was just, we're not going to let JJ beat us. But that's not how you should go in facing Michigan. Like, if JJ McCarthy beats you, then so be it. What you need to stop when you go against Michigan, and it's the reason why, the final score is what it is Michigan has the best running game in college football.
Yes.
And they demonstrated that. Like, Michigan had more yards rushing on the ground than Washington had in total offense. Like,
yes.
300. It was 303 yards rushing to 301 total yards for Washington. You're going to lose 10 out of 10 games if that happens. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if JJ McCarthy had one completion or if he had his 10 completions. If you give up 300 yards on the ground, and then their defense is able to slow down your high up-tempo offense, you're going to lose 10 out of 10 times. Shout out Jim Harbaugh, man. He answered the question that a lot of people had about him. Could he win the big game? And, it's been a question mark since the NFL. Obviously he lost the Super Bowl. That's the biggest game of football. And then when it came to college football, he was having issues winning that first playoff game. He started 0-2, and then now his record is 2-2, and he answered that question: I can win the big game finally, or I can win one of the two biggest games that football has to offer. And I'm extremely proud of him, because not many coaches throughout football or throughout the sports period can say, I went to this program as a kid, I played football here, or I played whatever sport here. I went throughout my career. came back here and I won a championship for my alma mater. Not a lot of coaches can say they won a championship for their own alma mater. So, that just puts you in another type of echelon. And, as much as I don't really like Michigan fans, just rivalry between Alabama, Michigan, Duke and Michigan. I got to give you guys your credit, man. It's cool to see a new team win from time to time. And it's even cooler to see a team that hasn't won in a very long time. You guys, your last championship was in 1998. So
97. Yeah, 97. And that was a shared national championship. The other outright championship they got in 1948 before that. So yeah, as great a tradition as Michigan in history Michigan has, they have 3 national championships and one of them was shared. But yeah, Will, what was your take from the game on Monday night?
It was a good one, man. I will say that I have to agree with Ben. The score tells a slightly different story, than what actually happened for the majority of the game. I think that it's kind of crazy, man. Like, JP, we talked about it, man. We talked about Blake Corum a good bit. But, I'll be real. Like, I didn't watch Michigan as closely as you did. So, Donovan Edwards really stole the show for me because, I knew what Corum could do. But, man, like, for you guys to have 2, gifted backs like that, man, like, and they ran all over, Washington. And I think you saw kind of the separator, in the conferences and in the recruiting powers, of a Michigan versus, Washington. Like, Washington star quarterback, of course, was through the portal. They grew the receivers at home, but that was what they had. Outside of that, on the defensive side of the ball, they just were outmatched. Their line was outmatched. So you saw a lot of that. But, I mean, overall, a good game. I was rooting for Washington just to see somebody different, but respect for sure, to Harbaugh. And I think he earned himself, a lot more earning potential, man, with whatever his next move is.
Right. I agree. I felt as though the game was won on the lines, defensive line, offensive line. I thought they dominated. Also, got to give credit to the Michigan backfield as defensive backs as well. Mike Sanatizzi, number 0, Will Johnson. But man, I mean, they played phenomenal. The Rod Moore, these guys played phenomenal. In the shutting down just powerful Washington receivers. Because, I mean, the Washington receivers, they have 3 of them that probably going to play. Well, what you call is guaranteed. The kid number 1, he's guaranteed to be a top 10, top 15 pick. But the other 2, Polk and other kid number 11, whose name is escaping me now, they're going to be playing on Sunday.
Jalen McMillan.
Jalen McMillan. Yes, thank you. They're going to be Sunday players too. But I think, Michigan played good, man. Mason Moore up front, of course. He played well. The offensive line, man, they were, holes that you could run a truck through. Like you said, Donovan Edwards, he had the best game of the year this year. Last year he had a great year. It wasn't as good as last year, but he played when it counted. What can you say about Blake Corum? Wilson, the wide receiver, he had some good catches. And I thought McCaffrey played a decent game. He could have played a little bit better, but I thought overall he played a decent game. They're clearly the best team in college football. I've heard some people talk about Georgia. Oh, well, we were there, but guess what? You lost to Alabama. So you do the woulda, coulda, shoulda game. Michigan's number 1, and that's the end of that. They're the best team in the country. Now,
the Georgia, you guys, that whole Georgia, Michigan, who was actually better this year? It was you guys, man.
Yeah,
it was clear cut. You guys had the better O-line. You guys had the much better defense. Like, one thing a lot of people weren't paying attention about Georgia this year, especially compared to their previous 2 elite level defenses, was the first year they won the Natty. They gave up 20 points, I believe, one time that year. or 2 times that year. The very next season, they gave up 20 points 3 times. This year, they gave up 20 or more points 5 times.
Yeah,
That was
Yeah.
before the SEC championship game. So they gave up 20 or more points 6 times in the season. That defense was not at the level in which it was the previous 2 years, and it for darn sure wasn't at the level in which Michigan had this year.
Yeah, and you know, Michigan, Georgia had a great year. They finished in the top 5 teams in the country. I think they finished number 3. I mean, they had a great year. So I mean, you know, there's nothing to hang your heads about. You can't win it all every year. You can't win it every year. I mean, they went back-to-back national championships. Not too many people can say that. As we go on now, you know, speaking of Georgia, before we get into the other coaches and stuff, let's talk about Jim Harbaugh for a minute. I believe that since he accomplished everything in Michigan that he set out to do, I really do believe that he is going to the NFL. And which team he goes to, I don't know. But if I were him, I would want to go to the Chargers. It's tailor made for him. He could turn that whole thing around. He has a franchise quarterback, Justin Herbert. He has Keenan Allen. He has a decent running game. He has a defensive players with Adams and Bosa and Mack and all them. He has things in place, and plus he's in LA. So you know, I would like to. I mean, you know, if he's moving on, I think the Chargers would be a good spot for him, man. You know, to move on. Chicago, they have their coach in place. The Raiders, I like to see Pierce continue to get a shot at this job and have him coaching and stuff. But yeah, I can see that. And then there's another rumor that went around yesterday about Kirby Smart possibly going to the Atlanta Falcons, taking that job. So what would happen with Nick Saban, which we were going to discuss in a minute, but Kirby Smart going to the Falcons and leaving Georgia? It'll be very, very interesting. What do you feel about that, Ben? About the we'll discuss Saban in a minute, but how do you feel about Kirby Smart possibly taking this job at the Atlanta Falcons?
If with two jobs open, you got the Falcons available and you have an Alabama job available. If you're Kirby Smart, which one are you taking? Why would you go to Atlanta and deal with possibly a bunch of grown men who we've seen some college coaches necessarily don't always translate to that next level, and especially at the head coaching spot. Mm-hmm. You know, coaching grown men making millions and millions and millions upon millions of dollars is a lot different than coaching 18 to 22-year-olds. Some of them are making a few million, but not all of them. You know, it's a lot easier to coach a person when you're making at least more than them. You know, when you're trying to tell your quarterback, "Hey, I need you to do this," man, fuck you, dog. I'm making $35 million. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That college quarterback, man, fuck you, Kirby Smart. I'm making $800,000, bitch. I make $12 million coaching you. Like, learn your lesson. Like, stay in your place. You know, there's levels to this type of stuff. Like, and I just think he's, you know, tailor-made for the college game, and especially right now. You know, you've been one of the most dominant teams the last 4 years in college football. You know, Georgia was your first job as a head coach, and Nick Saban almost groomed you to fill his spot. You know, so if I was him, you know, it's not like we can't offer him just as much as the Atlanta Falcons when it comes to a payday. You know, go ahead.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be very interesting. I think he might stay at Georgia because I keep hearing this name that Lanning from Oregon was going to get this Alabama job. But I'm going to throw in, and we'll get to you in a second. I'm going to throw a name that I heard they were talking about today on First Take and Undisputed with Skip earlier today. Deion Sanders. That's very interesting on a couple fronts. He does a commercial with Coach Saban, of course, But also, you know the offensive line problems they had at Colorado. Deion takes this job with Alabama. Shador comes with him. Travis Hunter comes with him. I can imagine he's bringing some of them offensive linemen, although Alabama already has their team. That's an interesting name to throw out. Also, he's in the SEC, more money. Man, that would electrify college football. And they made it a point with Undisputed. A lot of kids won't be transferring out of Alabama, going to other schools. It would be very interesting if there was some interest for Deion Sanders to take this job at Alabama. How do you all feel about that?
Yes, I'll address that. Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning announced today, I'm not taking the job. I'm saying
He's not taking the job.
Yeah, he announced today, which is good on him because there was way too much media attention saying, "Oh, Dan Lanning is guaranteed taking the job." Like yesterday, I thought that was way too much. I get it; he was a grad assistant for us, but that was all he was. He never really coached as a coordinator or even a positional coach under Saban. Like, and people were saying he was the first call. He should have always been the first call. No, like. You didn't really prove anything under Nick Saban. You got your start as a grad assistant, which led you into the coaching realm, but you didn't really coach under Nick Saban. Like the first two calls is Kirby Smart and Lane Kiffin. Like those were the first two calls. For Deion Sanders, I would love to have Deion. I would absolutely love to have Deion. You're absolutely right. And we wouldn't lose guys. We would maybe lose a couple, but the big super names would probably all stay, and that's because people love playing for Deion. Like kids are willing to go to a small program such as Colorado, which is limited in funds. So going there, NIL is not going to be as massive as some of these other schools, and so some of these 5-star kids are willing to go to Colorado. Imagine what those dudes are going to want to go do on the biggest stage in college football, period. And 100%, you would get – people were saying this, like you would get kids that you wouldn't even think would come to Bama, but they're going to start coming to Bama because of Deion Sanders.
Yeah, that's a very interesting name. Will, how do you feel about all this stuff? And who do you think will be the coach that should come to Alabama?
I mean, I think Prime would definitely be interesting, man. You know, you can get Boulder, Colorado jumping, man. You can get anywhere jumping, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I think Deion is definitely like the type of person, he can get you like amped up to run through a wall, you know, and he would be the type of galvanizing leader and personality that would be what, like, you know, a program needs. You know, losing, you know, arguably the greatest, you know, college football coach to ever, you know, grace the field, you know, and it's Alabama, you know what I mean? But you have to make a chess move here, you know, that is going to secure, you know, the next 5-10 years. You know, we've seen it with other programs, you know, if a coach moves on or if you fire a coach and you don't make the right hire, you know, it's like you're in the dark ages, you know. So I think Prime could be good, but I definitely think, you know, the Kirby Smart hire is almost like tailor-made.
Just to speak on like what Will just said, when you don't hire the right coach, look at Florida. Florida has been in turmoil since Urban Meyer left. Yes,
they have. Now, Ben, we know you're the Alabama expert on here amongst us. What are you hearing as far as who's going to now? Kirby Smart is very interesting because he's already at an SEC school, Georgia, and him coming to Alabama. That's very interesting. Who are you hearing through sources that about who's going to be the next coach at Alabama?
So, like I said, for all day yesterday, it was Dan Lanning. The whole entire fan base obviously is tweeting Lane Kiffin, emailing Lane Kiffin, calling Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin is the guy that we all want. we understand he's not the level, doesn't have the pedigree of which Kirby Smart is, but what we had under Lane and his energy and his like charisma and his like playfulness, that really resonated us with as a fan base when he was with us as our offensive coordinator. But as of like who's going to be that guy, I've been hearing Mike Norvell. Everyone's been saying Mike Norvell is, probably the tailor-made candidate, but he just got possibly in trouble today, or he could possibly looking at getting in trouble today because NCAA is coming down on Florida State for level 2 violations.
Oh,
and
wow.
That can either stay with the team or that can follow the coach. And if you come to Bama and you have a sanction against you that can possibly limit your ability on how many recruits you can have come in, like we've seen sanctions do in the past for coaches throughout NCAA, if you come to Bama and instead of being able to recruit 25 players and you're only given, 15 scholarships for the next 2 seasons or something per season, that's going to hinder you. And that's the last thing you want to bring into Alabama following Nick Saban, who Nick Saban, people try to ridicule this man despite his, resume. One thing Nick Saban can tell you and can back up with receipts, Nick Saban never had one sanction against the NCAA for any type of violation. As much as people say Nick Saban cheated and he was paying these guys under the table, this, that, and the third, not one sanction ever came up. He never got one violation in his 17-year tenure at Alabama. And there are coaches who can't say that a year into their coaching career at their current schools.
Yeah. As we talk about Nick Saban here, man, and his legacy, and he's surely going to be missed in the world of college football and in football in general. My opinion, arguably the greatest coach I've seen in my lifetime. Also, like I said, pre-show, he seemed to be a very good man who cares about his players. And you can't find none of his former players or anybody say a bad word about Nick Saban. Definitely a legend. He was great for college football. We'll start with you. How do you feel about the legacy of Nick Saban?
Now, I'll be honest, man. I feel like it became, fun to like wait to see, if Alabama was going to lose because they were so great. But, that speaks volumes to the legacy and to the coach, that Saban, is and was. 7 total championships, 1 at LSU, 6 at Alabama. There's coaches that coach 20, 30 years and never get one. So to get 7, and win at 2 programs, I mean, he's the greatest to do it, man. I can't speak against it. The facts are the facts.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to give him extra credit for them Aflac commercials too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. Ben, of course, with you being the huge Alabama fan, speak on the legacy of Nick Saban and what he meant to college football.
Nick Saban meant everything to college football. Like Will mentioned, he won his championship at LSU, and Nick Saban at that time was Dawn, the next up and coming coach of the football world. And so he made his jump to the NFL, and obviously it did not work with the Miami Dolphins by any metrics. So, he decided to go back to something he was a lot more comfortable with, and that was the college football realm. And he went back to a program that needed to be revitalized in Alabama. We had taken a step off from what our dominance was throughout our history. Before he came, we had 12 national championships. So, we were a historically, known, team within the college football realm, but we had fallen off from our standard. Mm-hmm. Nick Saban came back into a program and, revitalized it, brought it back to what it was, the pinnacle and the standard in the face of college football. And as both of you have said it, he not only made players better on the field, but he made men off the field that knew how to take care of business and stand their ground and, not let anyone disrespect their name, but also go out and show you results on why what you're saying isn't true, because I stand on my business. I take care of myself and my family and my loved ones. And, there are a lot of guys who have come through the Alabama ranks, and when they came into Alabama, might have been deemed knuckleheads, but by the time they graduated, these were grown men, being talked about as some of the greatest college athletes to ever walk through the doors. And so for him to turn some of these men's life around, it just speaks volume, because, for him, it was much bigger than football. It was about being a man. It was about, setting up the next generation for success. And that's, I think, what was his overall mission. He has said time and time again, all the wins are fun, all the championships are fun, but at the end of the day, I want to build the next generation for greatness. And if I got to, be tough on them and maybe be some type of a father figure, then I'm going to do it, because that's the only way you're going to set up the people that come after you properly.
Man, very well said about Coach Saban, man. Very well said. And I think as all three of us have said, man, he's going to be sorely missed with the game of college football, and whatever he does with his life, maybe he'll be a commentator or whatever. We wish Coach Saban definitely very well, whatever he's going to do next in life. As we move on now to the world of the NFL, another coaching legend just left the New England Patriots yesterday. And ironic, Nick Saban coached underneath him. And we're talking about the one and only Mr. Bill Belichick, leaving the New England Patriots, 24 years, 6 Super Bowls. Will, we're going to start with you on this one. But how do you feel? What did you feel about Coach Belichick leaving New England Patriots yesterday?
I mean, I feel like
today. I'm sorry. Today was it? Yeah, it was today. Today. I'm sorry.
It was a surprise, but then it wasn't. Obviously the Patriots just haven't had the success that they've been known for, and of course we gotta be real about it. They had Tom Brady during a large stretch of that. Really all of that success. And also a lot of notable other players, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But, Coach Belichick, man, the hoodie, one of the greats, man. 6 championships, that's an average of what, a championship every 4 years.
4 years, yeah, man.
That's crazy. As we talked about with Coach Saban, there's guys that go their whole career without one. So 6. It's phenomenal. Also, to speak to the level of football genius he is, and mentor that he is. When you look at his coaching tree, it spawns to just numerous head coaches, coordinators, just throughout the sport. And this type of staying power in this day and age, we'll probably never see it again, to be honest.
Yeah, Ben. How do you feel about Coach Belichick?
So for me, this one's crazy because it's funny because like you said, Belichick and Saban, were back on the Browns together from 91 to 94. And, you would think, me being a Saban lover, Belichick's not too far off of them. They're almost a copy and paste. But growing up, I didn't like the Patriots because they were so successful. It was like those moments like, I'm tired of seeing the same team winning. I'm so tired of seeing the same team represent one side of the NFL. And it honestly wasn't until probably four or 5 years ago when I came, I guess just grew up and I was like, you know what, like, Belichick is a copy and paste of Nick Saban. Let me sit here and just, admire the greatness and really just take it as for what it is. Yeah, it sucks. They were winning time and time again, but if you're great and you do good at your job, it's not up to you to lose and allow other people to win. Keep on winning. So, I'm not going to sit here and try, diminish him, like, oh man, like I can't stand you because you kept on winning. And that's just showing, the lack of confidence I have in myself. For hating on a guy who's been so successful throughout his tenure. And one thing that I haven't liked throughout the last couple of years is when Tom Brady left the New England Patriots, people started making up that stupid, like, did Tom Brady make Bill Belichick this entire time? Tom Brady definitely assisted in helping build up the resume in which Bill Belichick has, but let's not get it twisted. Bill Belichick is a defensive-minded coach to begin with, right? Go look at what he is great in. Go look at all the phenomenal defenses in which Tom Brady was assisted with. Bill Belichick is one of the greatest defensive minds, and it translated to the field time and time again. He did his job. Tom Brady, as smart as he was, went out there and did his job as a quarterback. They worked as a tandem. Say one made the other is not fair to each other. Tom has his resume, he's phenomenal. Bill has his resume, he's phenomenal. Let's not say one made the other, because that's not generally true whatsoever. But Bill's an all-time legend, and like Will said, much like Nick Saban, I don't think we'll see another one anytime ever again.
Yeah, man. I mean, you look at this man. Bill Belichick, as you said. The players that he had, the defensive players. I mean, let's start with him. Let's look at his career from the beginning. But he's a Bill Parcells disciple. He started off in the New York Giants defensive coordinator, where he had LT, who in my opinion is the greatest defensive player that ever played in NFL. He had the Harry Carsons, the Everson Walls, and those type of players. And then he goes here to New England. He has the Richard Seymours, the Vince Wilforks, the Teddy Bruschi's, the Mike Vrabels, Ty Law, Rodney Harrison, Darrelle Revis.
Oh.
I mean, Stephon Gilmore. He's had some great players on that defense, man. And like you say, he's a defensive player, but also even on the offense, he had some pretty good offensive players too. I mean, he had the Randy Mosses on his team. He had the Corey Dillons. To me, one of the two greatest tight ends of all time, Gronkowski. He had them. He's had some players, man. Deion Branch. He's had some great players, man. And the thing is, they all did it the Belichick way. I mean, he actually made players too in the very good players like the Malcolm Butlers. We never heard of Malcolm Butler before that play happened in the playoffs, and then he had a pretty good career.
Yeah, he was getting a lot of small name players, paid. Like Garrett Blunt got paid because of him. Wes Welker left New England to go to Denver and got paid.
And Wes Welker was a very good wide receiver too. Wes Welker was a very good wide receiver. Did he had? What's the other one he had? I can't think of it. He had him. Yeah, made him into a good. I mean, he had players. He made, in some cases with this team, he made sandwiches out of scraps. He really did. When you look at some of the players that he had, good players, he made sandwiches out of scraps, out of some of these players. That man found a way to win, regardless. And of course,
I was gonna say, and going back to the defense, take like all the guys that we mentioned are Hall of Famers. Take away all those guys, even like within the last 6 to 7 years when he necessarily hasn't had Hall of Fame level guys on that defense, they're still producing at a top 10 level generally every single season.
Yeah. And you know what's amazing? He won the Super Bowl, was it 2001? He went back to back. Was it 2004 and 2003, 2004? He went back to back. he didn't win again until what? 2015? What? 2015? Somewhere around 2015. Then he won 3 more titles after that. He was damn near a decade not winning the titles. He won 3 more. And of course he had to go to quarterback. Tom Brady was the greatest quarterback I've ever seen. At quarterback, and people remember, like you said about the Brady and Belichick day. Belichick's the one that gave Brady a chance over Drew Bledsoe. So the legend of Tom Brady was born during that playoff run, which I'm going to say, yes, in my opinion, as being a Raiders fan as well. I had 2 teams, by the way. People know this. I'm a Bears and a Raiders fan, and that the Tuck rule, the Tuck rule game, that gets an asterisk by me. That was a fumble that Brady had in that game. So it should have been 5 championships instead of 6. But hey, they won it and they did what they had to do, man. But Bill Belichick, man, salute to you. Great career. Probably, how's it amazing that the 2 best coaches we probably seen in our lifetime, Belichick and Nick Saban, go out within the last 24 hours, and Belichick gave Saban a chance with the Browns. How ironic is that?
Man, that's crazy. 13 championships between them.
13 and there's a chance we might never see this again. In the way New England was good. I mean, New England was good for like damn near 20 years. I mean, that's unheard of in football. A team being a model of consistency for 20 years. They might have won the Super Bowl every year, but they were guaranteed we'd give you 10, 11 games, won every year. It's amazing. It's amazing what that man did. So, salute to Coach Belichick as we also go on to another coaching corral of revolving doors of coaches, like with a merry-go-round. Let's talk about Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll basically got fired from Seattle, and they had a 500 record this year. They went over 500. They were 9-8. In my opinion, the man should never been forced out. Yeah, Pete is old. Yeah, Pete does some stuff sometimes that leaves you scratching your head as far as what he does in games. But let's understand something. Pete Carroll's a hell of a coach. I mean, he's one of the few. It was him, I think Barry Switzer, and who's the other coach that won in college and won in the pros?
Yeah, it's only 3 of them. It's Johnson from Miami and the Cowboys.
Jimmy Johnson, Barry Switzer, and Pete Carroll. Yeah, Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll, man, another great coach. He should have gone out on his own terms too. I mean, he led them to a championship. Was it 8-9 years ago? He should have won 2. To be honest with you, if he let Beast, but that's a story for another day. He messed up there. But let's talk about the legacy of Pete Carroll. Great coach on the college level, great coach on the pro level. Ben, let's start with you on that about Pete Carroll.
Yeah, you mentioned, could have had 2 Super Bowls. What else? He could also have 2 national championships. People want to dismiss Pete Carroll, and especially in the last few years, when Russ would have these amazing starts to the season and then drop off, and people would be like, come on, Pete Carroll, just let Russ cook, and this, that, and the third. And now we're slowly starting to see Russ here in these 2 years in Denver. Like, maybe it was just Russ. He's just, slowly declining here on the back end of his career. But
I will say this. I will say this real quick. I think Russ got a raw deal this year. Last year, I definitely agree. This year, 26 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. I really do believe, but that's a story for another day, though. I think he got a bad deal from Sean Payton on this. But go ahead, though. Go ahead, Ben. I'm sorry about that.
No, you're 100% okay. But like you mentioned, there's only 3 coaches to ever win at the college level and at the NFL level. And, a lot of fans that watch football don't even know that. And so, like, they're out here making these judgments on Pete Carroll, talking about the bad in which he may have done throughout the last couple of years since, their Super Bowl appearances. But at the end of the day, this man's in an elite company with 2 Hall of Fame coaches, and there's only 3 people to ever do what they've done. Pete Carroll is a football genius. Yeah, he might not have the accolades of a Bill Belichick and a Nick Saban and some of the greats that have also come, throughout his time of coaching. But this is a guy that's done stuff that people may never see a day in their life. Some guys may never see a Super Bowl appearance, let alone two, let alone win one of them. Some guys might not ever see a national championship game, let alone two of them. Some guys might not even have the opportunity to have a guy win a Heisman. This man turned Reggie Bush into the greatest show in college football to watch. You couldn't it was just, hey, let's just give it to Reggie because we know Reggie's going to put on the show, not only for us coaches, but for this fan base. Pete Carroll is phenomenal. I think he should get a lot more, love than what he has seemed to have gotten in the last couple of years because Seattle could easily mess up this hire. They could easily mess up this replacement for Pete Carroll. And if they do so, you just went from the greatest, 13-year stretch of your franchise career, and it could easily just go into strict turmoil. And then I promise you, if that happens, like next year, if they lose 6 or if they only win 6 games next year, their fan base is going to be crying for Pete Carroll to come back. We're so sorry, Coach. We're so sorry that, we were talking bad about you. We're so sorry, Coach, that you actually knew how to draw up schemes and put players in right positions and draft appropriately. It would really suck because Seattle is one of the greatest fan bases that ever exist. They sell out every single game. They love their players. I just hope they get this right. You would hate to see these Hall of Fame coaches leave their current situations, and then that first guy that fills in for them just turns everything upside down.
Yeah, definitely, man. Will, how do you see this whole Pete Carroll thing, and not only his legacy, but also what you see playing out in Seattle?
So first, I'll say I was kind of surprised. I thought, he might get another year, with a focus and revitalize, Geno Smith, there. I think they were doing some decent things considering, they weren't at the level that they once were. But as far as the overall legacy of Pete Carroll, man, definitely one of the greats. When you talk about him, you have to, Ben broke it down, but I don't think a lot of people really realize the fact that he was the head coach of 2 of the most must-watch teams of our lifetime, and the USC Trojans that had Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, Lindell White, and those guys. And then also with, the Legion of Boom, Beast Mode, Russ, and those guys, and it's hard enough, like you said, it's hard enough to win one. He won 2, national championships in college. He won 1 and was 1 interception away from going back to back in the NFL. He's in rare air, man, and I just think that with social media and just a lot of youth that don't do their research around sports. They just know him, for the recent years. One of the greatest coaches to ever grace the sport, for sure.
Definitely. He's a Hall of Fame coach as far as I'm concerned in the NFL and in college football. I mean, the man he revitalized the USC program. USC's program was down as well before he came in there. He came in and revitalized that. The Seattle Seahawks, he revitalized their program when he came back to being a coach again. I mean, the man's been a winner everywhere he went. Did he win championships every year? No. Was he in contention a lot of years? Yes. Did he win championships? Yes. The man has a Hall of Fame resume, man. And, he had a lot of great players that he had too. He got Beast Mode for Buffalo. He came in there and Beast Mode's a Hall of Famer. Should be in the Hall of Fame. Russell Wilson, 3rd round pick. Who saw the career that Russ was going to have? Pete Carroll drafted Russ, made him his quarterback his rookie year.
Richard Sherman.
I mean, you know the man, Richard Sherman, taken in the 3rd round. Hall of Fame, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. I mean, he took certain players. Who else am I thinking about? Bobby Wagner,
Yep.
2nd round pick.
Earl Thomas, Cam
Gonna be-
Chancellor.
Earl Thomas should have had a Hall of Fame type career if not for the personal problems. He should have been a Hall of Famer because he was great. 5 of those first 6 years he had, he was great. He was great, man. You know, but man, I mean, what can you say? Pete Carroll, man, you know, he had himself a great career, and you know, this is a sore loss for football yesterday. These were 3 huge losses: Saban, Belichick, and Coach Carroll. Man, it was huge losses yesterday for the game of football.
If people want an understanding of how important and how big Pete Carroll it was, look how long it took for people to start paying attention to USC again. When Pete Carroll left USC, Sarkisian was there, and unfortunately Sarkisian was going through some life issues that led him down the dark path that he was going down at USC. Lane Kiffin was way too young at USC to do anything. He was immature. He was a kid pretty much, and he didn't really have the knowledge that he had today. And then they had 2 or 3 other coaches before they just landed on Lincoln Riley, 2 years ago. So it took them – last time he was at USC was 2009. So it was 11 years? It was 11 years that USC was pretty much irrelevant. And you know, that shows you, you know, how important he was to that program, that it took them, possibly 4 coaches before they finally found one that could revitalize an institution that once used to dominate the college football space.
Yeah, and I'm gonna tell you all something too, man. I'm gonna tell you all this. What you call it? Lincoln Riley, he better start doing something at USC because there's already rumblings about him already. They're already rumbling about him. And he just lost Malachi Nelson to Boise State. And he's supposed to be, the 5-star recruit that they had. He was supposed to be the best quarterback, one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the country last year. Man, look, he better do something this year. He better do something because the pressure is on him. And you know, not to go on a Lincoln Riley tangent because it's not really about him. But another thing about Lincoln Riley as well is that he's never had a great defense. No matter where he's at, he never had a great defense. So
I think his best defense was ranked like low 50s, like low high 50s. That's the greatest defense he's ever had, and he only ever did it once.
Yeah. He better give himself a coordinator because that coordinator they had last year was named Grinch. Yeah, he was the Grinch last year.
Yeah, Anthony Lynn should do a lot better. What Anthony Lynn did with that UCLA staff in 1 year, oh my God, they were unbelievable defense for UCLA.
Yeah, definitely, man. We'll see what happens. As also we continue talking about the NFL. So you know what it is this time of year. Put up or shut up time. Money's on the line right now. Let's get into these games, y'all. Let's get into these games, I guess, one by one. Let's start with, you know what? We're going to start it off. Let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys against the Green Bay Packers. I have a real good friend of mine. He's a huge Cowboys fan. And he was talking a lot of trash. But he told me the other night he's a little nervous about this game. As I always like to remind him about the Cowboys. Every year around MLK weekend, this is when exposure starts to happen. This is when all the expectations start going down the tubes. Let's analyze this game, the Packers versus the Cowboys. Who wants to take this first? How do y'all see this game transpiring?
I mean, I think it's tailor made for the Cowboys to lay their egg that they're famous for. Man, I think you know the Packers, they got some playmakers on the defensive side of the ball that can give Dak some issues. And I'd be remiss to not mention the emerging quarterback, Jordan Love. He really had a heck of a season, man. And I gotta shout out, my brother-in-law Stacy. He's a huge Packer fan, man. And he stayed the course, no matter what was going on. And he's a big believer in what Jordan's been able to do, and that arm talent that he has. And I think, I remember Dallas has had some injuries, man, to some big time playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. And I think Jordan Love may be able to, exploit some of those holes left by those playmakers.
Yeah, Ben, how do you see this? How do you see this shaking up?
I'm a Washington fan, so anytime I can, dismiss the Dallas Cowboys, sign me up for it. This is a game I think Dallas should be able to win. I think this Green Bay Packers team, they've had an unbelievable year. I think a lot of people thought they would fall just short of the playoffs potentially. It's just Jordan Love going into his first year. A lot of his playmakers on offense are all within their first or second year of their NFL careers. And even defensively, this past offseason, they lost a couple pieces defensively and didn't really necessarily fill them with big, big names, big quality names. But a lot of their guys just stepped up. And then Jordan Love throughout the season just started putting good games together. He started being a lot more consistent. He started making the right throw instead of trying to force balls into windows that, should only be made from generational level players like a Mahomes or Josh Allen or a Tom Brady. And that's just, young, simple, I'm in my first year starting type of mistakes. But you could tell Matt LaFleur, really got this man dialed in. And I think a lot of it just had to do with the young receivers enjoyed playing with them. They obviously have talent as well. Jayden Reed was a guy who fell in the draft a little bit. There were 6 or 7 wide receivers taken before Jayden Reed, and he's been one of the best rookie receivers in the entire NFL. Christian Watson at times when he's been on the field, and this is a guy that's been hurt for the most part, but when he's been on the field, he's a difference maker. He takes the top off the defense. He's one of the fastest receivers in football. And then Romeo Doubs as well. Romeo Doubs from time to time can give you a really big performance. So when healthy, this is a Packers team that has 3 pretty good wide receivers, which when you really think about it, that was something Aaron Rodgers was missing in Green Bay for a couple of years. He was crying for a wide receiver. And so now that they have these 3 young guys with a nice young quarterback, it's cool to see the growth of this team. I thought they'd be in this position possibly next year or the year after, but, Jordan Love being able to be a lot more consistent and put games together has really expedited this rebuild process that Green Bay has been going through.
Very good points. Very, very good points. I think this could be a 1-possession game, in my opinion. I think it's going to be, if Jordan Love comes out and plays the way he played in some of these big games this year, they have a good shot at beating the Cowboys. I really do think, though, it really comes down also to the running game with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. Can they run the football? Will they be healthy enough? Like you said, Christian Watson, will he be healthy enough? Because he can stretch the field. The kid, Jayden Reed, is good. Also, another receiver that played well for him, too, is Bo Melton. Bo Melton, I think, had a 100-yard game last week. They have some receivers, as you said, Doubts, him as well. And also the defensive side of the ball. The key matchup to me in this game between Dallas and Green Bay will be between Jazeer Alexander and can he contain CeeDee Lamb. That's all he can do, because we know that the players they got Quay Walker, Rashawn Gary, they can get after that quarterback. Kenny Clark and all of them, they can get after the quarterback. They get after that. It's going to be a very good game. Now, also on the other side of this, the Cowboys. Or can they run the football? They want to run this football because people are going to start putting the clamps on CeeDee Lamb in that passing game. In playoff time, you got to run the football. I think this is where they made a mistake of getting rid of Zeke, especially in short yardage situations. Tony Pollard, he's had an okay year, but he didn't have the year that he had last year. He's a good running back. But also, how would Dak play underneath this? Can the Dallas defense with Parsons and Lawrence and them, can they get after Love? The defensive secondary with Gilmore and Bland and all them, can they contain this Packers offense? This explosive young receivers, can they do that? It's going to be a very good game. And I think this game will be closer than what people expect. I'm going to say the Cowboys win, but maybe by a couple points. If I was a betting man, I wouldn't bet on this game because Green Bay could easily win this game. It's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a tough game either way. As we move on, Buffalo against Pittsburgh. There's really not much to talk about there. I think Buffalo goes, especially with T.J. Watt not playing on Sunday. I think Buffalo goes in there and handles their business and beats up for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's offense is sort of still in disarray. Josh Allen and the crew, Diggs and Cook and them. I think they handle Pittsburgh decent. Another game that's tomorrow, 4:30. The Texans versus the Browns. Very interesting game. How do you see this taking place, Ben? Let's start with you first on this. With this game tomorrow.
It's Saturday. It's 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday.
I'm thinking today is Friday. I'm off, man. I'm thinking today is Saturday. Tomorrow's Saturday.
I wish it was Friday. It would be a day closer to football.
Me too. Me and you both. I'm in the front. You see, I'm in the Friday mood.
I love this Texans team. I just wrote an article for the Lions Den on this Houston Texans team, D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud. This is a Browns team. If they were fully healthy, my outlook on this game would be a lot different. If you had a Deshaun Watson playing, if you had a Nick Chubb playing for sure, their offensive line's been beat up as well. So a fully healthy Browns team, we'd be having a little bit different discussion. This Texans team is a team on the rise. This is a team that has bought into D'Amico Ryans since day one. This is a guy, and this is why being able to control a locker room really means something. It's a reason why we might not see Josh McDaniels ever get another coaching job. It's because he tries to demand a locker room. You got to earn that respect.
Don't get me started on him, Josh McDaniels. Oh man, I didn't like that hire from the door. From the door, I didn't like that hire. But go ahead, proceed. I'm sorry.
And then for D'Amico Ryans, D'Amico Ryans is a former player, so I feel like they sometimes have somewhat easy transitions because players know that they've been there and done it. For D'Amico Ryans is one of the greatest to ever do it. D'Amico Ryans proved it at the collegiate level and the NFL level. So when D'Amico Ryans is out there coaching you, and especially him being somewhat close to these guys in age, D'Amico Ryans isn't too far removed from playing in the NFL. And so a guy who's played at an extremely elite level, when he's coaching you and telling you how to be a better player, guys are going to be a lot more receptive to taking in exactly what you're trying to do, because at the very little, they want to try to replicate the same success that you had. And so for D'Amico Ryans to come into a young team that's got really good talent within the last 2 years of the draft, Will Anderson, C.J. Stroud, Tank Dell, Christian Harris, Derek Stingley. They got playmakers that are all within a year or two of their NFL career, and they're super talented, but they need you to coach to unlock it. And in comes D'Amico Ryans. D'Amico Ryans is a defense-first type of coach. And he's really elevated this young team into being one of the better units of football. There are times when you watch the Texans team and it looks like they're going to get beat up. But next thing you know, 3-4 minutes later into the game, they'll get a turnover on defense. CJ Stroud's throwing a beautiful pass to one of his targets for a touchdown. And next thing you know, it's like a 3-score game. And the next thing you know, they're winning the game within the last 2 minutes because CJ Stroud has shown multiple times this year that he can run a two-man offense in late game situations with the game on the line. I think Houston wins this game. I think Houston wins this game at 10. I think with this game being in Houston and that fan base, knowing that they're going to be back in the playoffs, they're going to be revitalized. They're going to be that stadium is going to be so packed with so much energy that it might be one of the best experiences in a playoff game that we've seen in a very long time. Because this is a Houston team that the last time they saw 10 wins was what, 2019, 2020? Mm-hmm. They've been a turmoil franchise for the last 3 years. Like, they've been so bad that DeMeco Ryans this year had 10 wins, which is 3 more wins than they had in the previous 2 seasons combined.
Right.
Like I said, if this Browns team was healthy, I'd have a different type of, response to this. But with them having to deal with a 35, 36-year-old Joe Flacco, I get it. He's put together some great performances, but Joe Flacco in his 4 or 5 games also has 7 or 8 interceptions. So as much as he's throwing for these 300-yard games and he's throwing maybe 2 or 3 touchdowns, he has a 3-interception game so far in the regular season. He has another 2-interception game in the regular season. So it's not like he's not prone to turning it over. And against a young defense like this Texans team, he can easily throw 2 or 3 interceptions.
Right. Well, what do you see?
First of all, man, shout out to Joe Flacco, man. South Jersey's own. But Ben is right, man. I do think that we're seeing a young team, step up and kind of set the foundation for their future. I think that playoff atmosphere is going to be kind of similar. It's a different sport, but to Sacramento Kings being back in the playoffs in the NBA. I think the fans are going to be hungry for that, and they're going to show up and show out. Texas loves their football, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Coach Ryans can build, there. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm very impressed, by the composure. Outside of just the throws and the reads that CJ Stroud made, throughout his rookie season, man. When you're watching the draft, typically quarterbacks they go high and they go in horrible situations. But CJ was put into a great situation, and he.
But will you break it up a little bit, bro? You said you break it up a little bit.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, CJ was put into a great situation, but he, still had to go out there and perform, and he exceeded expectation, in year 1.
Yeah, I agree. Man, CJ Stroud's a special quarterback, man. It's going to be a tough game, and Ben made some good points about, Flacco with the interceptions and stuff, and with them. If Nick Chubb was there, they would probably be Super Bowl contenders. And Nick Chubb is that good of a running back, man. Hopefully we see him back at full strength next year. I think it's going to depend on this Texas defense as well, with Will Anderson and them guys up front. Can they get pressure on him? Stingley and them in the backfield. Can he get a couple interceptions? It also contained Amari Cooper and them guys over there. Amari Cooper's having a Pro Bowl year. He's had a great year this year. I'm going with that. Real quick, let's go over the other 2 games that we have as well. We're just going to say predictions on these ones, on these games. Lions versus the Rams. Who wants to take that first?
I'll take this one first. The Rams, the Rams have been finding out ways to run the ball, but the Lions are a great run defense. The one thing the Lions struggle with is stopping the air attack. Their defensive backfield has been absolutely terrible. They've given up massive yardage games to multiple quarterbacks throughout the year. And you're about to go against Stafford, who's coming back home to Detroit in a playoff situation. If you don't think Stafford is not going to be turned the hell up for that type of game, any type of Lions fan is sadly mistaken. I think Stafford's going to go out there and put on a masterclass. I think we're going to see both Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp have over 100 yards and a touchdown apiece. I got Rams by 10 plus.
Ooh, man. What do you see, Will?
I think, the Rams, they've been decent in some up and down moments, but I think this is going to be, and this is still my city moment, for Matt Stafford, man. I think, he still got something left in the tank, and I don't necessarily think that players, always tune into social media heavily. But, I've been seeing some silly discourse about who won that trade, between the Rams and the Lions. I mean, and obviously one is the Super Bowl champion and the other is not. And I think he's going to take this chance to remind, Lions fans what they once had, when he and Calvin were in town.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a very, very, very good game. You know what? Ben might have actually changed my mind. I'm like to go with the Rams on this, man, as well, because not only do they have the receivers and stuff like that. I think, like you said, that the leaders, the secondary of Detroit is not that good, but also I'm gonna tell you who's going to be a key as well. It's going to be Kyron Williams. Can he run the football effectively for the Rams? I think that's going to be the key. He's had over 1,000 yards this year. He had a career year this year, over 1,000 yards rushing, 9 touchdowns. I think that's going to be the key.
If he didn't miss, I think he missed like 2 or 3 games with an injury. If he doesn't miss those games, he's possibly the leading rusher of the NFL. Kyron had
He could be because McCaffrey, I think, won the rushing title. Yeah, he missed a couple games. Definitely. I also think the defense of the Rams too is better than Detroit's, because of course you got the all-time great, one of the all-time greats, Aaron Donald up front. You got him as well. Can the Rams secondary slow down that Detroit wide receivers? I think what's his name, St. Brown. I think he should have been in the Pro Bowl. He's one of the biggest snubs I felt. So I think he's definitely one of the top 5 receivers in football. It should be a great game. Let's move on real quick, y'all, to the Eagles versus Tampa Bay. Man, this is woo. What can you say about this game right here? I think this game right here is for Tampa's to win. I don't see an answer for Mike Evans. How bad the secondary is, how bad the secondary has been for the Eagles. To me, it's a close game because the Eagles can score on Tampa. But with Mike Evans, I don't see an answer for them. Baker Mayfield, they haven't gotten after the quarterback neither. This team seems like this is very much disarray. I am going to give a slightest of edges to Tampa because the way the Eagles have looked the past couple of weeks, especially last weekend against the Giants team, is not that good. Them going down 24-0 and losing by 2 touchdowns last week. Who wants to take this first? I guess we're going to go with Ben since he's the guest. Ben, how do you see this game with the Eagles versus Tampa?
I haven't bought into this whole Eagles drama. Have they been falling off? When during their stretch of losing towards the back end of the season. I believe this is an Eagles team after they took that first loss, just decided, we're pretty much clinched for the playoffs. Let's rest, man. Like we've been adding new guys. Like we're having to change up our concepts. We're changing players' positioning on the field. Man, let's just settle down a little bit. If we lose some games, it sucks. Obviously, you want to win as many as possible, but these guys and the Ravens were the first two teams clinched for the playoffs. This team has been clinched for the playoffs since like week 11 or 12. So what? They lost a couple games from week 12 to week 18. They've been in the playoffs before any other team in the NFC. I think that injury to Jalen Hurts' finger could mess him up a little bit. That was pretty gruesome. That's the last thing you want. I'm surprised they even played him, especially when we saw so many backup quarterbacks play last weekend. Because now you're going into a playoff game that actually matters, unlike a Week 18 game, and your quarterback's got a broken middle finger. Thankfully, I don't think it was on his throwing hand, so it shouldn't affect him too much. But at the end of the day, if you got some discomfort in your hand, you're going to be thinking about that pain just a little bit. This Buccaneers team, great defense. It's been a big driving force for them for a good portion of the year, but I don't know if Baker Mayfield's ready for a big moment yet. He's never shown it to me that he's been able to take on a big moment, so I'm not going to believe on him today to take on a big moment against the Philadelphia Eagles.
Right. Well, what do you say?
Well, first of all, I can't make a point if I'm on mute, but I can't put but so much faith into Baker Mayfield. He might as well say he was on the verge of being employed. We got to start there. If you have a good defense, Baker has shown he can get hot.
Are you breaking up again, Will?
Baker showing that he can get hot, but I think that I just think that schools they know they have a lot to do, and I think we're gonna see something from Jalen. From what I've seen from them today, early in the season, I felt like this was his MVP to win. Possibly his Super Bowl to win. And obviously there have been some struggles, for weeks now. But if they can play, within percentage of the way they played earlier in the year, I don't see them having a problem.
Right. And then I guess we could go to our final game. We just want to go over this real quick. Miami versus Kansas City. I think this is probably the easiest game of the weekend, to be honest with you. It's going to be minus 12 degrees from what I understand in Kansas City. Miami's a warm weather team. They're banged up. We already seen them hurt already. I see Kansas City winning this game easily. What do you see for this, man?
I see Kansas City winning simply for the statement that you put. It's going to be freezing cold there. Yeah. Tua's never won a game below 0, 0-10. And like you said, they're too banged up. They lost Bradley Chubb. They lost Jalen Phillips. Jalen Waddle and Tyreek have both dealt with injuries. Raheem Mostert is starting to deal with that these last couple of weeks. Devon Achane dealt with it earlier in the year. They're just getting hurt at the wrong time.
Yeah. Well,
the weather favors the Chiefs, and it's an episode where we discuss so many great coaches. I'm a big Reed, and I just think that the Reed competition, at least in a playoff, I think they'll enter their business.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to close this show out, but I just wanted to say real quick, two things. The first thing is of course, this weekend we have some great high school basketball. This weekend, the Hoop Ball Classic. And, we're getting down. This is really the real, well, I guess the Christmas tournament's at, but this is when high school basketball season gets really into full swing. We're not going to go over these games, but I just wanted to highlight some games that's going to take place up in Springfield, Massachusetts at the Hoop Ball Classic. Don Bosco Prep versus Archbishop Stepnick from New York. That'll be on ESPN2, 5:30 on Sunday, which I don't understand why you want to put these games on against the NFL. The best game probably of this whole thing between Friday through Monday is probably Montverde versus Prolific Prep from California. That's going to be a primetime game. We already know about what Montverde has. Prolific Tech also, Prep also has some big-time players. Tyron Stokes, the kid AJ is probably the #1 sophomore in the country. They're actually the 1 and 2 sophomores in the country. They also have another kid, I think it's in the top 20. So that's going to be a good game. Monday's slate, Paul VI versus Christopher Columbus from Florida. That should be a good game. Actually, to be honest with you, this Montverde game should be on Monday. I don't know why they're putting this game on Sunday. It should be a Monday game. Then look at Arizona Compass Prep versus Long Island Lutheran, Link Academy versus IMG Academy. Girls game, Long Island Lutheran versus Etiwanda from California. And at 11 o'clock, we start off with McCarran from Georgia versus Hartford Westlake. Let me tell you basketball people something. You follow high school basketball. You do not want to miss that 11 o'clock game, especially because there's a special player playing in that game, Ace Bailey. We already seen what he did up here in Jersey. This kid is special. He's pushing Cooper Flag for the #1 player in the country. Those are definitely 2 top players who've separated themselves from every day. But it's going to be a great weekend of high school basketball. I think Camden, they play on, Camden plays on Saturday at 10:30 a.m. on the NBA TV app against North Mecklenburg from North Carolina. So the W playing there as well. Let's close with this, man. This is an important weekend for I'm gonna close it out. It's an important weekend for American history, not only American history, but just history of the world in general. And we have to honor a great man who's made things possible for a lot of us. That's the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. What more can you say about this man? Man of peace, man of love, also man of humanity. But also, let's talk about the Dr. King. We always hear the I Have a Dream speeches and stuff like that there. We also got to remember the Dr. King who also talked about Black economics, who talked about buying the neighborhoods up. Also as well, speaking out against the Vietnam War and such. And if people want to see Dr. King, we always focus on I Have a Dream from 1963 on. But also look at his speech from Riverside Church in 1967 in New York City. What he was talking about and everything like that there. He also was a proponent of the Vietnam War. He was actually the first person to speak out about the injustice of the Vietnam War. And he was the most hated person in America by 1968. So yeah, some of these same people who are still alive, by the way, who turned their back on Dr. King. And now all of a sudden they say, oh, we love him because he was getting into controversial things and controversial issues. But we just want to pay homage. I just want to pay homage 1 second to a man who's peace, love, and humanity. Because, at the end of the day, we're all human beings at the end of the day. And there ain't, but, we always want to separate everything by racist stuff. There's nothing but the human race at the end of the day. And we're people. And that's what this world should strive for, is us living in peace, in love, and also living by the examples that Dr. King set for us, opened up doors, especially for Black people in this world and in America and stuff. So for all those people, from the Malcolm X's to the Black Panther Party, to the Huey Newtons, the Bobby Seals, the Fred Hamptons, to Dr. King, the Fannie Lou Hamers, and all those people who paved the way so we could do stuff like go different places and even do this stuff like, the podcast and stuff and everything like that there. I just want to say, we thank you for everything, that you've done, and that you've done for humanity and for this world. So for behalf of Will Lyons, Ben Fair, JP, we say peace to you all and enjoy your weekend. And also remember, go in peace and love.
Peace.
Yeah, y'all. This was